My name is Jordan Belfort. Not him. Me. That's right. I'm a former member of the middle class raised by two accountants in a tiny apartment in Bayside, Queens.
Some words from Jordan Belfort there, pulled straight from his now infamous 2007 autobiography, The Wolf of Wall Street, the written basis of the very movie that this visual essay, of sorts, is attached to. But did you know that a couple of years before he pled guilty to securities fraud and money laundering, and long before his self-mythologizing memoir became a bestseller, Belfort was taking a dip in the choppy waters of low-budget filmmaking?
Was that yodeling I just heard, or did you just say what I thought you said?
Hello, my name is Dave Wayne of theschlockpit.com, and joining me, as always, is my Schlockpit co-conspirator, Matty Podrevich. Say hello, Matty.
Hello, Matty.
And today, we are here to enlighten you as we guide you through the 8 wild and wacky B-movies that Jordan Belfort cobbled together between 1995 and 1996. Welcome to Planet Hollywolf.
Our story begins with a father and son duo by the name of Harry and Brian Schuster, a pair of South African businessmen with whom Belfort had become acquainted via his boiler room, Stratton Oakmont. Alongside such other ventures as animal safaris and cigar clubs, they're the owners of the Grand Havana Room, a fancy members-only smoking club in New York and LA. The Schusters had already dabbled in the movies, most notably producing the Robert Ginty starring Out on Bail and, at the other end of the quality spectrum, Peter Maris's Diplomatic Immunity. Quickly learning that, between the content-hungry video market and lucrative TV sales, there was money to be made, Jordan Belfort wanted in. So he and the Schusters founded Hit Entertainment.
It's just about setting up the right team, and then overnight your life can change.
To that end, Brian Schuster had a fellow called David Silberg to serve as Hit's Vice President of Production, a stand-up guy who, and we cannot stress this enough, was in no way, shape or form involved in any of Belfort's or the Schusters' dodgy dealings. We reached out to Silberg recently for a bit more information. Silberg explained that he wasn't privy to all of the details, but he was, and I quote, told that both parties were coming up with a certain amount of money, and that we were really going to get into the movie business. I was told to hire a foreign sales staff, which I did, and we were looking at a slate of 8 movies with an overall budget of $10 million. We decided to do 4 of them in the $1 to $3 million range, and 4 in the $500,000 and under arena.
Firestorm, no, not the one with American football star Howie Long, was co-written and co-produced by Jimmy Lifton. The architect of the Mirror Mirror series, Lifton's tenure with Belfort and the Schusters came straight from the set of Phoenix, a cheap sci-fi item about a bunch of space marines sent to a mining planet to thwart an android rebellion. The script to Firestorm took Lifton in a totally different direction, telling the tale of a jazz musician who goes to a mining colony to assist an android rebellion. Sarcasm aside, the roots of Belfort and the Schusters' maiden voyage can be traced back to the director that Lifton tasked with overseeing Firestorm, John Shepard. At the time, Shepard had just wrapped his debut feature, Teenage Bonnie and Klepto Clyde, for Menahem Golan's shingle 21st Century Films. But any thought of him being able to direct a second film for the former Canon bigwig fell by the wayside when 21st Century went bust. Needing a job, Shepard pretty much bit Lifton's hand off, and being a big crime film fan, submitted a noirish pitch for Firestorm, which Lifton, his wife Paulette, and Nick Spagnoli reworked into a science fiction framework per one of the biggest video trends of the period.
Now, as Shepard told us ahead of recording this, he wasn't too keen on the changes. Bentley Mitchum, the grandson of Robert, essaying the dual role of Bobby, a rebellious activist, and his twin brother, the trumpet-wielding, funk-strutting Sonny is a tad cringy. Thankfully, the presence of John Savage, Robert Carradine, Paul Ben Victor and the legendary Paul Williams provides a splash of much-needed colour, and Shepard's commitment to gunplay and action ensure that despite its sloppiness, Firestorm at least succeeds as a moderately engaging bit of nonsense.
Now, the key to making money in a situation like this is to position yourself now before the settlement, because by the time you read about it in the Wall Street Journal, it's already too late.
There are two unwritten rules when it comes to the casts of most 90s B flicks. Rule number one is that at least one member of any given ensemble will have featured, or would go on to feature, in episodes of either General Hospital, Days of Our Lives, Silk Stockings, Jag, or a combination of the lot of them. The second is that an and credit for a star with direct-to-video drawing power, the likes of Rutger Hauer, Malcolm McDowell and Richard Lynch, say, generally denotes that said star will be in fine scene-chewing form. Chase Moran, an enjoyable sci-fi action hybrid that's basically Die Hard on a space station, certainly affirms mine and Dave's steadfast belief in both of these axioms.
In regards to the former, you've got Jacqueline Seagrave, Ray Baker, James Liu, David Tress, and the always welcome sight of Brian James. And in regards to the latter, Chase Moran is anchored by a fabulous and turn from Bruce Campbell. Originally approached to play the eponymous John McClane-esque space cop, Campbell found the villain of the piece, psychotic terrorist Alex Wyndham, more appealing. As the Evil Dead icon explained in his 2001 memoir, If Chins Could Kill, I got a script that was hardly original, but it intrigued me enough to consider the part of the Bruce Willis-type hero. As I thumbed through the script, it occurred to me that he had the worst part of all. His lines, never more than two at a time, were always in the vein of "Get down! Wait here! Come on, let's go! Now!" I did notice, however, that the bad guy had eloquent speeches. He was witty, urbane, and seemed to be having a lot of fun. Call me crazy, but I took that role instead.
Vini, vidi, vici.
Campbell is brilliantly over the top and dances around Chase Moran with abandon, nabbing all the best quips and kicking the story into motion when he and his henchmen commandeer the mining colony of Dome 4. Less successful is Joseph Culp as the titular protagonist. Per much repeated exposition, Moran is meant to be a maverick, but Culp, well, he's about as loose a cannon as Mary Whitehouse.
Still, Helm of Gilbert Poe keeps everything else trigging along nicely, and he's aided by sturdy tech credentials. The film sports a pleasingly chunky look, Hunter Cressel's dumpster dive production design is great, and it's efficiently staged and shot, though there are a few jarring stylistic contradictions, such as Poe not being able to decide whether he should linger on the bursts of cartoony violence or pull his punches and cut away from them.
You're looking at me like I'm crazy.
Crazy. This is obscene.
Depending who you ask, Hit Entertainment's third film might have actually been their first. There's conflicting stories about whether or not the Secret Agent Club actually shot before Firestorm or after Chase Moran. It was their first big production, budgeted at a whopping, for them at least, $2 million, double the price of Firestorm and Chase Moran combined.
At Hit, it was Brian Schuster who made most of the key creative decisions. And while on a cruise, he crossed paths with, of all people, a stage magician who happened to be an aspiring screenwriter. Actually, said conjurer had a high concept pitch ready to pull out of his hat. The Secret Agent Club. It's True Lies meets the Goonies.
We're in family film territory, aren't we? A very popular subgenre in the mid-90s, particularly in the home video arena.
Wrestling icon Hulk Hogan stars as a tough guy super spy, masquerading as a bumbling, Jerry Lewis-ish widower toy inventor. Of course, the Hulkster's cover gets blown and it's soon up to his young son, played by Matthew McCurley, and his troublingly stereotypical pals to save him from the clutches of Leslie Ann Down's squawking villainess. A gurning Jack Nance, a grinning Barry Bostwick, and the forever excellent twosome of Edward Albert and James Hong also appear, but acting honours belong to the scene-stealing Richard Moll as Down's grunting, robo-legged henchman. It's a broad, fun turn, and Moll serves as the punchline to many of magician-cum-scripter Rory Johnston's best slapstick gags. The rest of the film, it's kind of awkwardly juxtaposed between tweeny cuteness and tastelessly mean-spirited violence, and the whole thing is really, really quite lame from a technical perspective.
Yeah, there's a lot of goofs here, aren't there? You know, boom mics dropping into shot, crew reflections, and in the final fight between Hogan and Moll,
the most egregious use of stunt doubles, a bad wig and a Smithy's bald cap ever captured on celluloid, right? I will say this though, it does boast a nice sense of forward momentum, and Helmer John Malowski, recruited for the gig after Belfort was blown away by his superior work on the Olivier Gruner starring Robo-Schlocker, Automatic, does a decent job of balancing all the goofy stuff with a surprising amount of pathos. Indeed, there are traces of real depth on show, and the film's poignant central themes of bereavement and being a sad kid at the mercy of a grieving parent's difficult work-life juggling act are never completely eclipsed by the tepid James Bond spoofery.
originally, Hogan's role had been offered to Tom Selleck, Don Johnson, and even Jim Belushi, before Hogan's agent called the Hits Entertainment offices, offering his services. The idea of an iconic grappler playing the part was initially met with a kind of derision anyone who's ever suffered through Suburban Commando knows all too well.
Oh, Suburban Commando is a classic.
Yeah, well that's clearly what Brian Schuster's 7-year-old son thought so too. Because of his enthusiastic reaction, Hogan was cast and the result was, Hits Entertainment's first hit. The Secret Agent Club pulled in twice its budget on video and in TV sales alone, and it even managed to snag a small theatrical run here in merry old England.
Turned out the British weren't too different from the Swiss. Money talks and bullshit takes the bus. How do you say rat hole in British?
By the time the Secret Agent Club had wrapped, John Shepherd was delivering his final cut of Firestorm. But there was a problem. It was too short. As stipulated by foreign distributors, Firestorm had to hit the 90-minute mark. So, ever the improviser, Shepherd utilised a couple of sets from the Secret Agent Club to shoot a few additional scenes in order to pad it out to the desired length.
While doing that, Shepherd found himself looking around and cursing the fact that these admittedly pretty impressive sets were about to be dismantled. Having previously worked under the mighty Roger Corman, Shepherd reasoned that such a grotesque waste of resources wouldn't do, so he contacted Belfort and the Schusters and proposed an economical neo-noir film called Blood Money that could make further use of the Secret Agent Club set before they were junked. The Hit Boys gave Blood Money the thumbs up, but with one condition. The film had to be ready, shot, chopped and scored for the American film market in 2 months' time. Shepherd accepted and, with the help of ace casting director Tom McSweeney, rapidly assembled a collection of names like James Brolin, Tracy Lords and Billy Drago and primed the film for the cameras.
However, 2 days before shooting, a problem arose. Shepherd was summoned to Brian Schuster's office, and there was Belfort. Belfort had an issue with Blood Money, and it was simple. He wanted a good friend, a non-actor, cast as the lead heavy, a role currently occupied by the peerless Sonny Carl Davis. Incensed, Shepherd was having none of it, especially so close to filming, a response that didn't sit kindly with Belfort. Shepherd had nothing to lose though. He was weeks away from a well-paid gig at Columbia TriStar, directing the soon-to-be Jim Varney classic Snowboard Academy. So a high-stress, low-paid shoot for Belfort was far from essential. Besides, the Wall Street powerhouse hadn't yet actually paid for the rights to Shepherd's script, something that left Hit Entertainment over a barrel due to their play-or-pay agreement with Brolin. In short, if the film fell apart prior to production, they were going to lose a wad of cash, a situation that left Shepherd holding all the cards. Considering it was the lowest budgeted film that Hit Entertainment made, it was done for $350,000. Blood Money, which was shot on 35mm shorthands that were left over from the 90s most iconic sitcom, Friends, wound up being their biggest success in terms of investment to profit. But unsurprisingly, it also ended up being the last film that Shepard made for them.
Take your little bow tie, get your shit, and get the fuck out of my office, you understand?
Get the fuck out!
Prior to walking away from overseeing their erotic imprint, Torchlight Entertainment, the mighty David Dakota, director of such distinguished masterworks as Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bolorama, Nightmare Sisters, Puppet Master 3, Voodoo Academy, had teased the launch of 2 further subdivisions for Charles Band's Full Moon Entertainment in the summer 1994 issue of Alternative Cinema. The first was the self-explanatory teen sci-fi, which, in a move typical of Band's obsession with branding, eventually came to be as Action Extreme. The second was Full Moon Cyber, a hard-edged outfit that Dakota envisioned as a home for dark, gothy action pictures pitched somewhere between Clive Barker and The Crow. Full Moon Cyber sadly never came to be, but it was clearly an idea Dakota held great affinity for. The very first film Dakota made following his tenure at Torchlight/Full Moon was also indebted to at least one of Full Moon Cyber's proposed influences. That film being Hit Entertainment's 4th produced flick, a superhero epic called Brave the Jaguar.
Hit Entertainment were looking for a non-union director with a decent level of experience to make a down and dirty action quickly and efficiently. Dakota ticked those boxes perfectly.
Solidly done, Brave the Jaguar is the work of a director firing on all cylinders. It's extremely fast-paced, with nary a second going by without something happening. Be it a pocket of drama, or a flurry of punching, kicking and shooting once Maxwell Caulfield's ex-Special Forces agent suits up, as the eponymous Jag, to avenge the murder of his family by a psychotic drug baron. A gleefully unrestrained turn from the late Trevor Goddard. Dakota and semi-regular cinematographer Howard Wexler forge an atmospheric comic book look with little more than a backlight, a smoke machine and a cornucopia of Dutch angles. Brave the Jaguar feels like a live action cartoon, and it is fabulous.
And crucially, it would be the film that put David Dakota at the forefront of Hit's roster of directors.
And to celebrate with our weekly act of debauchery, I have offered our lovely sales assistant Danielle Harrison here $10,000 to shave a fucking head!
Regularly appearing in the unseemly surroundings of IMDb's bottom 100 movies, listed as number 43 in a poll of the 50 worst children's films by Total Film magazine, and ranking in 3rd place behind Santa Claus Conquers the Martians in Atlantic City Weekly's countdown of the worst holiday flicks ever. It's fair to say that, of Belfort's B-movies, Santa with Muscles is, without question, the most notorious. Such notoriety, though, stems more from the fact that the film had a broad theatrical release. If, like its Hit Entertainment stablemates, Santa with Muscles anonymously schlepped into video stores, we'd wager that it would exist today in the obscurity that it rightly deserves. Alas, for the Schusters and Belfort, this simply wasn't an option. By the time of the American film market in early 1996, Hit Entertainment had managed to get half of its slate in the can, and now distribution became a greater priority.
While cobbling together the back half of Hit's production slate, Hit's VP of production, David Silberg, became aware of a distribution company called Cabin Fever Entertainment, a subsidiary of UST Inc., America's biggest producer of snuff and chewing tobacco.
Cabin Fever were hungry for pickups, and they had caught wind of Santa with Muscles, ruling it as a guaranteed money spinner thanks to Hogan's involvement. After all, 1996 was the year that wrestling truly started to become a major pop culture happening again, and Hogan was one of the top stars of World Championship Wrestling. So pumped were Cabin Fever for Santa with Muscles that they agreed to buy the entirety of Hit Entertainment's catalogue, both made and in the pipeline, with the deal hinging on Belfort & Co. delivering Santa with Muscles for theatrical release.
Funnily enough, the idea for the film came from Hogan's camp.
They wanted it to be his answer to Jingle All the Way.
And having established a good working relationship with Hit and director John Malowski during the Secret Agent Club, the film rattled into production. Its festive hijinks,
or lack thereof,
ironically unfolding in front of the cameras during early summer 1996. Reviewed in Variety upon its release the following November,
3 weeks before Jingle All the Way, fact fans,
Joe Layden wrote, "With Santa with Muscles is written, acted and directed in the style of a second-rate Saturday morning kids show from the 70s. And he wrapped up his critique by saying, if you call it the movie equivalent of coal in a Christmas stocking, you won't be far off the mark." That, however, didn't matter a damn to Belfort & Co. They fulfilled their contractual commitment to get the film into cinemas,
98 cinemas in the American Midwest to be precise.
and irrespective of quality, it cannot be understated how important this perversely appealing turkey was to getting the rest of Hit Entertainment's movies released on video and to TV.
Feel anything?
No.
Originally, Skeletons was going to be directed by maestro Ken Russell. The brilliant yet famously tempestuous Russell had cast the bulk of the film and was in the middle of location scouting when he had a massive Barney with Belfort and the Schusters over Skeleton's $2.5 million budget, which he determined was not enough. As such, and due to his prickly nature, Russell was given his marching orders. Into the frame stepped David Dakota, who, in a weird twist of fate, had previously worked craft service on Russell's classic Crimes of Passion back at the start of his career. As Dakota chuckled to me back in 2015, I really did feel so awful, especially as after I took Skeletons over, Ken's agent, the wonderful Bobby Lipman, this British guy who used to run MGM in the UK, ended up signing me because I took over his client. So I took his film and his agent too, which was even more bizarre. As mentioned earlier, Dakota had dazzled Belfort and the Schusters with his work on Brave the Jaguar. Less impressed at the thought of this classy mystery being directed by the man behind Creepazoids though, was the film's cast, specifically lead Ron Silver. In an echo of the James Brolin situation on Blood Money, Silver had both a play or pay contract with Hit Entertainment and director approval. Thankfully, following a meeting with Dakota, Silver liked him enough to give him the go-ahead and Skeletons pressed forwards. But it's worth noting that several investors, lured in by the promise of a Ken Russell movie, did drop out in the wake of his firing, prompting a budget cut of approximately $500,000. Still, Skeletons got made, and thank God it did, because it is fantastic.
A mature and thought-provoking exploration of bigotry and repression, Skeletons tells the story of Silver's character, Peter Crane, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journo who's forced to unravel a disturbing conspiracy of silence after the suspicious death of a gay couple in the small New England town of Saugatuck. Snazzily shot by Dakota mainstay Tom Calloway and bolstered by terrific performances from a star-studded cast comprised of Dee Wallace, James Coburn, Dennis Christopher, Police Academy's David Graff, Eating Raoul director Paul Bartel, and the late, great Christopher Plummer in a role first offered to Martin Sheen. If you only ever watch one film produced by Jordan Belfort, Skeletons is it. Upon completion, it was picked up by HBO, who ran it in their then prestigious Friday night at 8 slot as a big, heavily promoted channel premiere on the 25th of April 1997.
Maybe we built up a tolerance after all these years, huh?
Richard Moll, he stole the show in The Secret Agent Club. But the sight of the 6'8" actor, dressed as a nun, rapping alongside the diminutive 3.5-foot frame of Phil Fondacaro, who, incidentally, is dressed as a rabbi, might not necessarily have you ring to eBay in search of a copy of The Elevator. However, for all its failure as a comedy, The Elevator at least deserves mention for its snooty art house aspirations, and, of course, because it's the 8th and final film that Jordan Belfort and Hit Entertainment would produce.
Conceived by writer Gabe Bologna, the son of Hollywood golden couple Joe Bologna and Renee Taylor, after a real-life elevator incident where he found himself trapped mid-floor with Ron Howard, the scripter formulated a screenplay where he'd play himself, an ambitious wannabe author who, through fate, is left stranded in a lift firing pitches at a hotshot film producer played with gusto by Martin Landau, who, at the time, was fresh from winning an Oscar for his turn as Bela Lugosi in Tim Burton's Ed Wood.
I'm thinking a New York Stories kind of thing. Muses Bologna's writer character with a sly wink to the camera. 3 directors, each doing their own thing. And that's exactly the formula for this 3-part anthology. A kind of cash-in on Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino's clunker 4 Rooms, if you will, that sees British pop video supremo Nigel Dick tackling one segment, Arthur Borman another, and Canadian director Rafal Zelinsky bagging the third and the film's wraparound.
Interestingly, the elevator was initially offered to Zelinsky as a whole, but he despised the script and only reluctantly agreed to shoot a portion of it. Zelinsky had risen to prominence off the back of a string of 80s comedies like Screwballs and Valet Girls, but a new decade saw him transition to more art house fare, most notably in the form of fun. It was fun that had caught the eye of Brian Schuster, especially its striking switch between monochrome and colour, a style echoed in his segments of this mostly pretty janky non-comedy.
But hey, the people stumping up the cash, primarily Belfort, they were madly in love with the elevator, believing it to be their chance to move from B-movie genre fare to more avant-garde, critical and award-baiting hits in the Miramax mould. To that end, Belfort organised a big event in the Schuster's New York Havana rooms, whereby they'd procure a boatload more cash from Belfort's fellow Wall Street investors keen to get into the movie business, with an eye to, eventually, taking hit entertainment public.
Needless to say, you know the rudimentaries of how this story ends. Jordan Belfort was arrested on September 2nd, 1998, 3 months to the day after the start of the San Diego Film Festival, where The Elevator, his final film as a movie producer, had its premiere. In the wake of police questioning, he pled guilty to security frauds and money laundering. The Schusters met a similar fate, with the patriarch of the family, Harry, convicted on uncannily comparable charges to his movie-producing compadre.
In the unlikely event that the authorities weren't about to swoop, there were tentative plans to expand the initial octet of hit entertainment, with Lorraine Bracco reportedly interested in the lead role in the unproduced thriller Rearview Mirror. Joe Pantoliano had registered an interest in another project that didn't see the light of day.
This episode of film history may only elicit a barely readable footnote in the annals of Hollywood folklore. Hell, it only bagged a single paragraph in Belfort's own biography. But it warrants so much more, if only to shed little light on the handful of truly great movies that were born from this madness.